Sounds and do experimental things with it. I was interested in doing ambient music, or what I knew of as ambient music at the time.
Is there any spiritual desire in what you produce because of the type of music you do, or not? What is the...
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm overly esoteric about it, but it was definitely a ritual the way we started. I still take off my shoes, but that has more to do with my comfort, connecting in the comfort, yeah. Better control when I use my feet. What I have with me, I don't need my feet though, so I don't take off my shoes for that.
Well, you don't play the guitar with your feet?
No. Well, anyway, it's the hand sonic is just it's like playing a little keyboard, but with a much more interesting control. Much more limited range. It's not full octaves, you know. For me to go from one octave to another, I would have to program and hit the dial and move it, you know, and so I don't do a whole lot of that. But
it takes a lot of practice then to be able to master instruments like this.
I think so. Sure. I mean,
how long do you feel you need to be able to be comfortable with an instrument?
I don't know yet because I haven't quite gotten there. I know people who are naturals who can pick up an instrument and make beautiful music like that. Like the bass player in the band I can. It's just natural talent. But in terms of really owning it, you know, being able to control it with 100% certainty, I don't know if that ever happens.
I've heard from some other artists, I interviewed, for instance, John Blue, who takes an instrument and then works on it until he can play it. But I mean, he learns by himself. You learn by yourself?
Yeah. There's not a whole lot you can learn with the way I play it. In the trio that I play, Froggy Burger, it's drums. I do drums.
What is you do drums?
Yeah, but same instrument.
It's a different type of music then?
Yeah, it's kind of like trashy jazz.
Trashy jazz?
Yeah.
And you have a singer with that?
No, it's Pablo plays tenor sax, and Nico plays bass, and I play the hand sonic. Nico made a kick pedal for me.
And you play other instruments, or not really?
Not really, no.
But you didn't start with that instrument. I mean, how did you start making music? This is quite recently.
Well, I did take piano lessons at one time, but that's not the way I began. There was a piano at the house, and I used to sit down and play on it, but that was before I took lessons, so I wouldn't count that. But what I was saying about my brother behind the garage with the drums, me on drums, I bought an old used drum set, secondhand, and I guess that would be my first instrument, really.
The drum.
Yeah, but even then I didn't teach myself as well. I never took lessons. So.
And didn't your parents encourage that and send you to music school or something like that, or they didn't have a positive attitude towards it?
No, actually, when I was a child at one time, I do specifically recall my mother asking me if I wanted to take piano lessons because she had seen and heard that I sat down at the piano and played. I think she would have asked me anyway. I think at least 2 of my 3 siblings took piano lessons from a woman at the school.
Oh, right, okay.
But I just didn't, I never wanted to do anything. I'm not much different now, I mean, but at the time I was even more shy as a child. I wasn't very outgoing, and so I didn't search out those things. And so a lot of the things that I do are figuring out to do it on my own.
Yeah, I understand.
But anyway, like I said, with this instrument, the way I've programmed it, done the settings, you can really only teach yourself.
Plus you do the settings for yourself and the type of music you want.
Exactly, the shape and where my hands are going to be. Yeah.
And what do you find now, because you say you like to work on your own, but when you're working in collaborations, how does it develop your work, and what do you like, what do you dislike about it, working in a group?
What I like about it is it makes me do something. You know, when I work in a combination with people, it gets me involved. It means that, you know, there's a greater chance there'll be a deadline, there'll be a gig, there'll be this or that thing. Whereas alone, I have to be my own manager, and yeah, and that puts more impetus on me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so I think that's what I like about collaboration, primarily.
And what about this label searching? Have you got your own label, or has that been a problem? Or how?
I call my label Stillschweigende Musik.
This is your
But I've never released anything on that label officially.
Okay.
Yeah. But it comes from implied music, which is what Barry and I and Milk Baby decided we were playing implied music because we both played to an imaginary bass line because we had no bass player. And it occurred to him one day, you know what I think we're doing? I think we're both, not that we weren't listening to each other, but that the patterns we were playing created an implied bass line. Perhaps we were actually both hearing the same bass line, but not playing necessarily. Perhaps not, you know, who knows.
Yeah.
But you kind of hear this, oh yeah, you can kind of hear what the bass line might be there, and you're playing to that. You're both meeting at that point.
Yeah.
And so when I translated it to German, because I was fascinated with German, when I moved here to go to the Volkshochschule and learn and all that, I decided to use a German word for it. And Stillschweigen, as you probably know, is not just implied, but it can also mean, it has to do with playing with the words, the quietness. And since I like to play ambient music, and it's sometimes, depending on the situation, quiet.
Yeah.
Earlier it was more quiet than now, probably. But it occurred to me that when I play alone, that I can't, what I have in my head, I can't possibly create the music that I'm imagining. I have to accompany it.
Yeah.
So nothing that I'm playing is what I imagine that I might be able to play. It's a result of whatever I'm trying to play.
You hear the music in your head.
Mm-hmm. And I play to it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but it's not that sophisticated. I mean,
I'm not saying it's sophisticated.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's the first time I hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that if you were to, at the end of the day, that almost everybody probably does that. You know, to some extent. It's just that I got to a point where I said, you know, that's all I'm ever going to be able to do, except for a couple of pieces that I know where I play how I know the notes go.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And in the right rhythm, if there is one.
Have you ever thought of writing a more sophisticated thing, like in the sense that you hear all these layers and you're actually playing to it? Would you like to have like an orchestra play all the rest that's in your head?
I've thought about it a lot, but the next step.
Sounds a bit like Beethoven.
Yeah, I mean, composition, yeah, I've been interested in composition for a long time, and that's another thing about working with people is it forces you to, if you're working with the right people, it forces you to compose something.
Yeah.
And then you're not just, you know, there's a big improvisational music scene in Berlin.
Yes, I know that.
In the noise music scene, I'd say it's, you know, more than 90% improvised, and so, you know, and that's what Milk Baby did. We improvised all the time. We discussed a lot. Maybe we should compose something. Maybe, you know, we never quite got there. But now, Froggy Burger, for example, we compose pieces.
And why do you like it better?
Oh, well, I just like it as an alternative, not better.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, I mean, I would like to.
Because you find it pushes your creativity to be composing rather than jamming, or they just both complete each other?
There's something about learning something and being able to reproduce it that I appreciate. Yeah.
Sometimes you can bring it further and you actually improve it.
And you're always improvising anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Like we are now, of course.
Yeah, like all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, I like the idea of being able to
Since when
reproduce.
are you in Berlin?
I got here in April of 2002.
Oh, that's quite a while.
Yeah.
And why did you come to Berlin?
Well, Tracy and I left Chicago in 2001 and came over here to make music. We named ourselves E-Baby,
Baby.
Yeah.
That's quite funny.
Yeah, and we just began to travel about and looking for good places to play, basically. And I eventually settled on Berlin, actually, because she phoned me up in Brussels, where we had been staying before, and she actually is a modern dancer, so she came here to met some people and came here to do something. She called me up and said, you know what, I think you'd like Berlin better, because she knew I didn't really like Brussels all that much. And so I came here, and there was a place where I could stay for a little while. And yeah, she was right, I liked it. And I've been here ever since.
And did you know Tacheles?
Tacheles was actually the first, let me think about this for a second. It's one of the first gigs that I played. There was a Fête de la Musique in the summer of 2002. Salamburi, I'm a member of Salamburi, which is a noise music association. And they were doing at the time, Seamus and Johannes from Radio Campagna were set up a stage under the arch outside, which was, it was during the day. It was a bit rough because there's a blues band across the street playing really loud, and I was playing at about 5 in the afternoon with the sun in July and playing this ambient music. It was kind of weird. I remember being there at 2 in the morning and watching what was going on at 2 in the morning because it kept going through the whole night, and thinking, God, I wish I could play now, you know, because it was great. But I mean, it was a positive experience. So yeah, I knew Tacheles from then. At that point, I learned there were so many places you don't know, unfortunately. That I also played, like Eimer, which was down the road there. The cafe that moved in there had the gall to call themselves the Bucket. Or Bucket, or something like that. Just like Fleischerei, you know, Fleischerei used to be a druckerei, a printers, and they got thrown out, and now the little hamburger joint calls themselves Fleischerei as well, with the chic new signs and everything, you know.
And you played here already?
Yeah, I played here. Then again, my friend Marcus, aka Old Noise, who has done several hundred Dienstbars, which is also a noise music venue. He invited me and has invited me on occasion to play in a band called CD Chrysler Van Friedrichshain. And we played in down where we were.
Basically, you played there
at the time. It was a different gallery, and we played in there.
And do you know the Berlin Improvisation Orchestra?
The Splitter Orchestra or someone else?
No, it's someone else. It's Anna Kaluza founded it because she experimented it in London. And then she founded it in Berlin after staying there 1 year. She's a saxophone player. And they do a lot of experimental mixed with jazz, just like you were explaining to me before. It's very interesting concept. And it floats. There's over, I think there's over 100 artists in it, and then when they play there, they can be 3, they can be 15, they can be 7, they can. So it's
no
every time it's new, and it's very creative because it pushes in directions, because the mix of instruments is very interesting. I should introduce them to you.
Do they have a regular stage somewhere where they play regularly? Or
I don't think so, but they play a lot in the Xinjiang, in Neukölln, you know this place. They program jazz and experimental.
What's it called?
Xinjiang.
No, there's so much new in Neukölln.
Yeah, but that's been there for a little bit.
Has it? Well, there's an orchestra called Splitter Orchestra. I only know one person in it. There are 24 of them, and they play every week. You know, Unterm Dach. I can't remember the name of the actual place, but it's on Prenzlauer or Danziger Strasse. And they play once a week. There are 24 of them, same concept, but it's always the 24 of them. And it's a crazy mixture of electronic and horns and whatever.
And today you've been producing music for